And joining me for the chat today, delighted to say, is Conservative commentator Benedict Spence. Morning.
Good morning.
Lots to talk about today. One of the things, obviously, I'm asking about in particular, we've had Keir Starmer's rather humiliating phone call with Trump yesterday. Apparently the first time they've spoken since the conflagration broke out. I mean, that's embarrassing. You think Tony Blair wouldn't have been, involved in the conversation beforehand? You think he would have been first person on the phone? I mean, come on. You can have your criticisms, but at least he kind of knew how to be a leader, for goodness sake. Even Boris Johnson, I think, would have managed that, wouldn't he? But Donald Trump has, and indeed our Prime Minister, having to confront the idea of these surging world oil prices, oil and gas, and basically, even though Ed Miliband clearly doesn't understand these things, 80% of the fuel used in this country and indeed the world is fossil fuel. So when you cut off the Strait of Hormuz, which is right in the Middle East, and basically a fifth of the world's oil and gas can't get out, and they can't send it out, so they stop production, you end up in very, very, very difficult circumstances, because it's this thing called supply and demand. And I know Ed Miliband doesn't understand this. Pretty sure, actually, the Prime Minister and indeed the Chancellor don't understand this. But this is Economics 101. When the supply goes down and demand stays the same, the price goes up. And that is what we are seeing now. But Donald Trump has said that it's a price worth paying. Basically, a small price to pay for defeating the threat from Iran of oil prices going up. He, of course, has got midterm elections in November. Early voting starts as early as September. So he'll be facing some concerns about that among his own party supporters and voters in America. Keir Starmer today has been out and about at some community centre. Sorry, guys, someone's got to take the hit of the Monday morning visit from Keir Starmer. He has said that he will, he wants to reassure people about the impact of oil price hikes. And apparently ministers are considering freezing energy bills. Remember what happened in 2022 when we saw the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and energy prices just went through the roof. And of course, Liz Truss put that little cap on it, and then everyone said, "Oh, it's awful," when anyone who's in government would have done the same. That's paid for by taxes. We're going to pay for it anyway, but it's going to pay for it over a longer period. Anyway, all that's happening, but I want to know from you, when Donald Trump says that surging world oil prices are a small price to pay for defeating the threat from Iran, what's your reaction to that? Do you think he's right? Are you absolutely not prepared to pay an extra penny on your gas or your electricity bill, or indeed for anything in the supermarket because of this? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Benedict Spence, I'm just coming back to that question. Is it a small price to pay? Is it a price worth paying?
It's a huge price, and it's going to be paid either way. What I would say is that this is a scenario where, say, if you were a fossil fuel rich country away from the regions, say somewhere like the North Sea, you ought to be fine. Equally, if you're the sort of country that had, say, rolled out nuclear power over the last 20 years, using the profits from your oil and gas industry to sort of meet in the middle so that prices didn't go up too much in the short term, again, you ought to be fine. Are there any such countries that fulfill that criteria? Gosh. I can't really think.
Do call in 0344 499 1000.
Sadly, all of our bills are about to skyrocket, and nothing is going to change.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, again, some of these countries that are being affected with this 24-mile strait being closed in the Middle East, the biggest producers of liquid natural gas. Well, liquefied natural gas. Well, that's what we import because we don't get it out the North Sea on the same scale.
Which we could, but we
choose not to.
Exactly.
We don't frack and we don't do all those things. Tories just as much to blame, by the way, on this one, but Labour are even worse.
The two examples that you go to, Norway, which shares all of these oil and gas fields with us, and France, which did the nuclear thing, they're both relatively fine. France is able to export nuclear electricity at almost zero cost at wholesale prices because it is so abundant. Norway has got a massive sovereign wealth fund that allows its people to live pretty comfortably despite it not really producing much else. And you just think, well, if only somebody had the foresight that this sort of thing might happen, that, say, a rogue regime that is right there in the middle of the world's, one of the world's most wealthy fossil fuel areas might decide to kick off, might get dangerous.
I think you'll find that Ed Miliband would point out if we'd moved to net zero sooner, then it will be fine. Because apparently Ed Miliband, totally and utterly unaware of the fact you can't make concrete or steel or warships or fertilizer or food with just solar and wind power. Apparently he's literally the person in charge of this and doesn't know this stuff, which I find, I'm not going to lie, little bit scary.
Listen, I know that we're not a tyrannical country and we don't go in for big, unusual punishments for people, but I will vote for whoever promises to take every single person who has trashed the oil and gas sector in this country and stymied the rollout of nuclear power, takes them all, puts them on a ship, sends them to South Georgia to be banished there forever. Guys, there's lots of wind in South Georgia. Let's build your utopia there.
Fill your boots. I'm very much with you that all the people who are voting for net zero and support all this, if you think the world's going to, disaster, and that's what you believe, absolutely fine. You'd pay for the energy hike. The rest of us will stay on the old tariff. Thank you very much. As you say, it's not going to be a small price to pay. It's going to be a big price to pay. This is going to hit Trump. It's also going to hit Starmer. But in the same way as, again, the invasion of Ukraine, that caused the massive inflation, the massive hikes we saw with energy bills and everything at the supermarkets. Remember, 11.1% we got to with inflation. And again, Labour were very big on this is Tory inflation. But it wasn't. Whoever had been in charge would have seen that. But the other thing is this is going to also ramp up interest rates. We're not going to see interest rate cuts as we've been expecting over the next few months. And again, who pays? It's not just your mortgage. It's not just the businesses that have got loans. It's also going to be, the government what is it, 110 billion quid a year we already spend just to service the interest on all. We're not even paying off. This is even worse than those student loans under Plan 2. I mean, this is how bad it is. You ain't never paying that off. So when those interest rates go up, poor old Rachel Reeves, as if we shall feel sorry for the chess not champion. Rachel from accounts, she's going to face even worse problems because of this, because of course there isn't going to be any money spare. Do you have any sympathy for them at all?
No, I don't, actually, because they are all part, as much as they might try to differentiate themselves from the Tories, they're part of the same political elite that have the same worldview.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. In terms of, look, I've been off for the last week, falling down mountains, and as I say, I want to say a big thank you again to Marta in makeup department who managed to. I've got a shiner, not actually from falling down a mountain. It was a troublesome door, and I was sober, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But thanks for great work, Martha. Appreciate that, hiding it for me. But I think going on the YouTube with a shiner, not a good look. But I was watching it from afar because I always like to take a week off when World War III starts. But I'm watching it from afar. It's just extraordinary to see just this national humiliation being played out. Keir Starmer can't decide. Donald Trump, okay, look, he says a lot of things, but Donald Trump basically saying, Winston Churchill, we knew that, but then also saying, look, we don't need you to join us now when we've already won the war. And by the way, Emmanuel Macron has just arrived in Cyprus amid amid the Iran war effort. But he's going to Cyprus. Our Prime Minister isn't, after our military base was hit by Iranian attacks.
This is going to happen. The next thing that is going to happen is EU countries are going to start putting a lot of pressure on the UK to relinquish those bases to be given to an EU country. That's going to happen. There will be, artificially created protests on Cyprus from paid protesters to turn up saying Brits out of Akrotiri, we want decolonisation, all that sort of thing. It's going to happen because that's the playbook. And the problem is our Prime Minister, our government are weak enough to do that, to go along with it. If they think it'll make ties with the European Union easier, they'd be more than happy to do that. It's the sort of thing. All that I would just say finally is I'm really happy that Argentina is a basket case right now, because if they were inclined to invade the Falkland Islands, I do not believe our Prime Minister would defend them. That's the position that we're in. He would not do it.
He'd pay to give them away. Normal things. I've just been handed breaking news. The AA. Now I've got a lot of time for the AA. Edmund King, president of the AA, he's regular on the show. But he said that people should drive less to save fuel as the war in the Middle East sends oil prices surging. Said on Monday, RAC has also said avoid harsh accelerating and braking to help eke out every last mile and save money. Drivers should consider, says the AA, cutting out some non-essential journeys and changing their driving style to conserve fuel. And when it's cold, put on a jumper. Look, I know they're just giving advice to motorists. Look, there are ways you can actually use energy. But it's
the fact that we've got to this
position. Whole of our entire economy is now run on the basis of let's consume less, don't have your heating on, use less light, use less energy, eat less. No, I don't want to. I want to live in a land of plenty, and the only reason it's not a land of plenty is because these insane economic and net zero policies. And we as you say, we would not be hit so hard if we had more sane policies, and that comes down to political leadership for the last 15 years.
Yeah, it's a political vision of the world that says that a form of degrowth is desirable, effectively. And at the same time...
We used to call that communism.
Well, frankly, it is. But at the same time right now, America has energy abundance. It's finding ways of improving other, renewable energy forces, be it nuclear, be it geothermal, all sorts of things. They're doubling down on this technology. The Chinese, whatever you think of them, are doing the same thing because they see these overheads coming. It is only us, not just in Britain, in parts across Europe as well, where we have this attitude, which is almost like, well, we've reached peak civilization because we have coffees. And
our children are not going to be better off than us. That's not... No, I want my kids to be better off than me. It is insane that this bloc, of which we have, even though we voted to leave it, we remain very much culturally, I believe, politically, part of it. Our leaders have not left. They are of the same mindset that we are looking at the rest of the world, and we're seeing other countries storm ahead of us, and our attitude is we need to regulate. We need to slow this down, buddy. Change. Oh, I don't like the sound of that. All of this sounds a little... and you do know that oil and gas, it explodes, don't you know? It's quite dangerous, and what we actually need is a nice, really consistent way of living that just means nothing ever changes, and we can maintain control over it. Oh, but by the way, let's open up the borders and import millions of people because we're not having enough children. Well, let's come to that. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of moments with Toby Young, Lord Young, from the Free Speech Union. But the government today, it was leaked to Tim Shipman at The Spectator at the end of last week. They're going to publish their new Cohesion strategy, Protecting What Matters. And it's being published today. It includes setting up a role for an anti-Muslim hostility czar. Now,
out of curiosity, is he therefore in charge of all the anti-Muslims, or is he against it? Because I think the framing of this is actually rather poor.
It's very difficult to keep up, isn't it? But we're talking about basically it's a 47-page document, and it wants that anti-Semitism is becoming normalised in the UK,
really,
as well as anti-Muslim attitudes. But also it's accused right-wing groups of using the Union flag and the cross of St George as tools of hate. I don't think flying a national flag is a tool of hate unless you're doing it to people who really shouldn't be here, frankly, because if you've got a problem with the flag, you shouldn't live in the country. Thank you very much. But he says, for many people, they say, Britain's historic social cohesion that has kept us united in the face of adversity is now under threat. For many people living in the UK, the changes brought about by mass migration have been too much, too quickly. This is a fascinating bit, leaving people feeling as though they are losing their local and national identity. But they're not feeling it.
It's happening.
It's actually happening. They say
in fact,
integration, they say, is a two-way street, calling for respect for different cultures, but newcomers have a responsibility to engage with and embrace what it means to be British. No,
it's not
a two-way street.
Yeah.
No,
that's
not.
Putting the blame on us. That's what that's doing. It's telling,
also,
it's
it
telling
depends.
us.
And it's not like, you eat, I don't know, you eat spicy food, or someone eats fish and chips, or you're from France and you like snails. I can respect that, that's fine. I don't have to respect all of other people's cultures. If your culture means that women are second-class citizens or have to cover their faces, or that gay people get killed,
or that Jews are evil,
or that Jews are... No, I don't respect your culture. No, sorry.
Honestly, the way that this is framed, and of course you can see that it's downstream of the idea of multiculturalism, this idea that actually all cultures are kind of equal. Every sane person understands that's half of the reason people move to countries like this, because their culture is not the same. What is insane is that when they get here, then they're told, oh, well, you don't really have to assimilate, so they don't assimilate.
You can live exactly as you want, but take all the benefits that this country's culture brings.
No other serious country does this. A couple in the West have decided this is a good thing. Look at what it's doing to France right now. Look at what it's doing to Germany right now. This country that had this pathological, well, we can't go down the route of extremism. Oh, good Lord, the AfD, where did that come from? Oh, that's right, it's because we decided to denigrate our culture. Go to places like Japan, it doesn't happen. China doesn't allow it to happen. This is the reality. Most countries do not just go, come on in and do what you want.
European countries aren't allowing it to happen.
Absolutely not. Poland isn't. The Czechs aren't allowing it to happen. Most countries understand that's how your civilization ends up in trouble. It's just us that have forgotten this somehow.
Well, no, just our leadership. The British people haven't forgotten it. It's just our insane sort of lanyard class.
I don't know. There's a lot of Greek people vote Green. A lot of people still vote Labour, and they think that way. That's what concerns me. A lot of people still think this way.
Well, we're going to talk about the Greens a bit later. Good luck with that, I say. Anyway, 11:18 is time. I want to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. As I say, calls are charged the national rate. Text costs £1 standard network rate. Message. We're going to get